We descend through soft clouds, and below us, the island emerges slowly from the darkness, a scattering of lights arranged in perfect geometry across velvet black. The plane banks gently, and through the window, we see the coast outlined in amber, the sea invisible except where it meets the glow. Singapore appears not as a sudden arrival but as a gradual awakening, the way a dream reveals itself in pieces, never all at once. The air outside is warm even through the glass. We can sense it somehow, that weight of tropical night pressing against the thin cabin walls. The descent is smooth, unhurried. Palm trees rise in silhouette along the edges of the runway, their fronds still against the terminal lights. We touch down with barely a tremor, wheels kissing tarmac, and the plane exhales as it slows. Through the windows, we see the garden walls of Changi, not concrete barriers but living green, ferns and orchids climbing in vertical cascades even here, even at the edge of the runways. Inside the terminal, everything is polished and hushed. Our footsteps make no echo on the marble. The ceiling stretches high above us, and somewhere water falls in a quiet rhythm, though we cannot yet see it. The air is cool, controlled, carrying the faint scent of something floral we cannot name. We move through immigration in a kind of trance, passport stamped, baggage claimed, and then we step through the sliding doors into the tropical night. The humidity meets us like a soft cloth laid across the skin. Not oppressive, not heavy, simply present, a reminder that we are somewhere green, somewhere alive with moisture and warmth. The taxi glides forward without a word. We settle into the back seat, and the driver nods, and we pull away from the terminal into the darkness. The highway unfolds smooth and silent beneath us. Streetlights pass in rhythmic intervals, each one pooling light on the asphalt before releasing us back into shadow. To our right, beyond the roadside barriers, we glimpse the sea, or rather, we sense it, a vast breathing darkness stretching away toward the horizon. The East Coast Parkway curves gently along the island's edge, and through gaps in the trees, we catch fragments of reflection, moonlight trembling on invisible water. Palm trees line the parkway, their trunks rising pale in the scattered glow. Between them, the jungle presses close, not wild, but tended, a measured green that never quite retreats. We pass apartment towers standing silent against the sky, their windows dimmed, their balconies hung with laundry and potted plants barely visible in the night. A cyclist moves along the coastal path, alone, their small light bobbing through the darkness like a firefly. The taxi hums along, the air conditioning a gentle whisper against the warm glass. We watch the city scroll past petrol stations glowing neon blue, coffee shops closed and dark, void decks beneath HDB blocks where a few figures sit on plastic chairs, talking in low voices we cannot hear. Everything is orderly, clean, the lines painted crisp on the roads, the greenery trimmed but lush, spilling over walls and median strips in controlled abundance. And then ahead, the skyline begins to gather itself. At first, just a brightening on the horizon, a suggestion of something vertical rising from the flat darkness. We round a long curve, and there it is, Marina Bay, floating in its own light across the water. 3 towers standing side by side, connected at their summit by something impossible, a ship balanced on needles of glass and steel, suspended in the warm air as if by magic or dream logic. The taxi slows as we approach the city center. The highway descends, dipping below overpasses draped with bougainvillea, and we emerge onto quieter streets where the buildings rise close on either side. Here, the air feels different, still warm, still humid, but enclosed now, channeled between walls of concrete and glass that hold the day's heat even in the depth of night. We pass shophouses, their shutters pulled down, their painted facades peach and turquoise and faded yellow glowing softly under street lamps. A lone hawker stall remains open, its fluorescent light spilling onto the pavement, steam rising from a pot we cannot see. An old man sits on a stool, smoking, watching the empty street with patient eyes. The taxi turns and we are suddenly at the water's edge. The bay opens before us, dark and still, its surface barely moving. Across the water, the skyline stands in perfect reflection, doubled and shimmering. The towers, the lights, the strange floating vessel atop Marina Bay sands, all of it mirrored in the black water, trembling gently as if the city itself is breathing. We step from the taxi into the night. The door closes with a soft click and the car glides away, taillights fading into the distance. We are alone now, standing on a wide promenade that curves along the bay. The air is thick with warmth, but a breeze moves across the water, carrying with it the scent of the sea, salt and distance, and something faintly green, maybe algae, maybe the gardens that cling to every surface in this city. The silence is profound, not empty but full, the kind of quiet that hums with presence. Somewhere across the water, a boat sounds its horn, low and mournful. The sound rolls across the bay and fades into the sky. We begin to walk. Our footsteps are soft on the smooth pavement. To our left, the water laps gently against the concrete edge, a rhythm so subtle we feel it more than hear it. To our right, the gardens rise in terraced layers, trees and shrubs sculpted into smooth forms, their leaves catching the ambient light and glowing faintly silver green. Benches appear at intervals, empty, facing the water. We pass them slowly, one by one. The promenade stretches ahead, curving around the bay's edge. In the distance, we can see the Merlion, that strange guardian figure, white and silent, water pouring endlessly from its mouth into the bay. But we do not hurry toward it. We let it remain there, a distant landmark, while we move at our own pace through this warm, quiet night. Above us, the sky is deep indigo, not quite black. The lights of the city diffuse into it, creating a soft glow that obscures the stars. But here and there, if we look carefully, a few pinpoints shine through, Venus perhaps, or Jupiter, steady and patient above the urban shimmer. The buildings that line the far side of the bay are monuments to precision. Every line is deliberate, every surface polished. Glass towers rise in geometric perfection, their facades patterned with thousands of windows, most dark now, a few still glowing where someone works late or cannot sleep. The Marina Bay sand stands among them like a punctuation mark, its three towers leaning slightly inward, the rooftop structure connecting them in a gesture that seems both impossible and inevitable. We notice how the light falls here. It does not scatter randomly but follows intention, uplighting on the bridges, soft floods washing the facades, LED strips tracing architectural lines in cool white and pale blue. The effect is not garish but gentle, a city presenting itself with quiet confidence, dressed for evening but not for spectacle. A jogger passes us, breathing steadily, earbuds in, lost in private rhythm. They nod slightly as they go by and then they are gone, absorbed back into the night. We continue walking. The breeze picks up for a moment, ruffling the water, and the reflections dissolve into ripples before reforming, the skyline reassembling itself in the dark mirror of the bay. Ahead, a small pavilion extends out over the water. We step onto it and the bay surrounds us on three sides. Here, the city feels both near and distant. The towers loom across the water, their reflections stretching toward us, while behind, the gardens rise in shadowed tiers, and beyond them, the older parts of the city sleep in relative darkness. We rest here for a moment, hands on the railing, feeling the cool metal beneath our palms. The humidity settles on our skin, not uncomfortable, just present, a reminder of the equator, of endless summer, of rain forests and monsoons held at bay by glass and air conditioning, but never truly absent, always waiting just beyond the city's edge. The water below is opaque, black as oil, its surface catching fragments of light, gold from the street lamps, white from the towers, the occasional red or green from a navigation buoy somewhere out in the shipping lanes. A small fish breaks the surface, a quick silver flash, and the ripples spread outward in concentric circles before fading back into stillness. Time feels different here, stretched and soft. Minutes pass, or perhaps longer. The city makes no demands. There is no rush, no schedule to keep. The night simply continues, patient and warm, holding us in its gentle grip. We turn and begin walking again, following the promenade as it curves back toward the Merlion. The path is smooth, unbroken, designed for exactly this, for quiet walking, for contemplation, for moving through space without friction or obstacle. Cyclists glide past occasionally, their tires whispering on the pavement. A couple sits on a bench, speaking in soft murmurs, their words dissolving into the night before reaching us. The humidity begins to feel familiar now, not strange but natural, a second skin. Our clothes cling slightly, but there is something comforting in it, this warmth that never quite releases, this air that holds moisture the way memory holds feeling. As we walk, the sky to the east begins to change. Not dramatically, not with fanfare, but with the slow inevitability of planetary rotation. The indigo deepens for a moment, then starts to pale, the faintest suggestion of gray seeping into the horizon where the sea meets sky. Dawn is still far off, but the night is beginning its slow retreat. The city feels even quieter in this in-between time. The last of the late-night workers have gone home. The early risers have not yet emerged. We have the waterfront almost to ourselves, walking through this liminal hour when the city pauses between yesterday and tomorrow. We reach a small park where the grass is perfectly trimmed, where trees provide scattered shade even in darkness, their canopies spreading wide and flat. We step off the pavement onto the grass, and the earth beneath feels cool and slightly damp. Dew is forming, tiny pearls of moisture catching what little light reaches here. Sitting on the grass, we look back toward the skyline. From this lower vantage, the buildings seem even taller, their peaks lost in the diffuse glow of the sky. The Marina Bay Sands dominates the view, its rooftop vessel now edged with the faintest hint of approaching dawn, a thin line of lighter gray separating structure from sky. The air smells of earth and distant rain, of cut grass and something flowering we cannot identify. A bird begins to call, tentative at first, a few soft notes, then growing bolder. Another answers from across the park. The dawn chorus is beginning, though dawn itself is still far away. We lie back on the grass looking up. The sky is slowly losing its stars, the glow of the city erasing them one by one. But for now, a few remain, steadfast and clear, burning through the urban haze. Time continues its quiet passage. The breeze moves across the grass, ruffling our hair, carrying with it the promise of heat to come, but for now still cool, still gentle. The buildings stand watch around us, their windows beginning to catch the first indirect suggestions of light, though the sun is nowhere yet visible. We rise eventually, brushing grass from our clothes, and return to the promenade. The water has changed color, no longer black but deepest blue, and the reflections have softened, less sharp now, as if the city is slowly emerging from sleep. Walking eastward along the bay, we move toward the growing light. The promenade stretches ahead, and somewhere beyond it, the sun is preparing to rise over the sea, over the ships anchored in the strait, over the islands scattered like stepping stones toward the horizon. But we are not hurrying toward it. We are simply here, walking slowly through this warm, humid dawn, letting the city reveal itself at its own pace, in its own time, as the sky continues to brighten and the night quietly, gracefully lets go. The light along the waterfront changes almost imperceptibly at first, as if someone has turned the dimmer of the world up by just a fraction. You continue along Marina Bay's edge in that softened hush that belongs to the last moments of night, when the city still seems half asleep, and the day has not yet made any demands. The promenade beneath your feet is cool from the hours of darkness, its pale paving stones holding a memory of the night air. The humidity is here, as always, resting gently on your skin, but before sunrise it feels kinder, tempered by a faint, lingering coolness. The breeze moves across the water in thin, invisible streams, just enough to brush the back of your neck and stir the edge of your shirt. Ahead, the outline of the bay begins to gain definition. Towers that were once black cutouts against the sky now reveal faint texture and depth. Windows pick up the first glints of a sun still hidden, catching the soft gray light and holding it like breath. The Marina Bay Sands looms at your side, its rooftop ship a clean, dark shape against the paling sky, still more silhouette than structure. You walk without hurry, shoes tapping softly, almost in rhythm with the gentle lap of the water below. The surface of the bay is no longer a flat pool of darkness. It has become a deep, velvety blue, with subtle ripples that catch and scatter the light, turning it into thin threads of silver that weave across the surface and disappear again. As you round a curve in the promenade, the Art Science Museum comes into view. At night, it was a suggestion in the shadows. Now in the half-light of pre-dawn, it stands like a giant lotus frozen mid-bloom beside the water. Its white petals are still mostly in shadow, yet their outlines have softened, no longer stark, but gently washed in the first gray tones of morning. Against the sky's gradual brightening, it has the quiet presence of something organic, a flower made of concrete and intention. The reflections in the bay mirror the scene, but more loosely now. The lotus shape shivers on the water's surface, its ghostly twin stretched and elongated, petals dissolving into ripples. The buildings around it, taller and harder, appear softened in their watery reflection, their strict edges blurred by the movement of the tide. The city looks kinder in the water, as if its own reflection is a gentler version of itself. Around you, the waterfront is beginning to stir. A runner passes, the faint patter of shoes on stone growing slowly louder, then fading back into the distance. The rhythm of their breathing is steady, even like an unhurried metronome guiding the slow awakening of the day. Another jogger appears, then a third, each moving at their own pace, their faces calm, their bodies cutting clean paths through the humid air. A woman in a bright tank top stops near the railing, stretching, one leg propped on the lower bar as she leans into the gentle breeze from the bay. She holds the pose silently, looking toward the opposite shore, where lights are beginning to switch off one by one in the office towers. After a moment, she changes position, then continues jogging, footsteps receding into the growing murmur of morning. You notice the sound of the city changing softly around you. Where before there was mostly the whisper of wind and water, now there is the distant hum of engines, the soft rolling rush of early buses moving somewhere behind the rows of buildings, the low rumble of trucks far away. These sounds arrive through layers of air, muffled, restrained, as if the city is clearing its throat before speaking in full voice later in the morning. The sky above the bay has moved from indigo to a pale, diffuse blue, brushed with faint strokes of peach near the horizon. Clouds lie in thin, delicate strands, high and nearly transparent, catching that first hint of color that precedes the sun. They reflect faintly in the water, turning sections of the bay into muted marble patterns, blue, gray, and the softest blush of pink. You pass an older man walking slowly, hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the water. His stride is measured, unhurried, a daily ritual etched into his muscles. A few steps ahead, a young couple shares a quiet moment, leaning against the railing shoulder to shoulder, speaking so softly that their voices never quite reach you, melting into the hum of the waterfront. Near the Art Science Museum, the path curves inward and the buildings cluster more closely. The smell of the bay gives way briefly to the faint scent of metal and concrete warmed by the first suggestion of heat. You walk toward the Helix Bridge, its curving structure stretching like strands of DNA across the water. In the gentle dawn light, its metallic coils glow in delicate tones of silver and pale bronze, catching the sky and holding it in loops. Crossing the bridge, the city opens in front of you. Ahead across the water sits the esplanade, its domed roofs low and rounded, planted along the shore like two watchful creatures. From a distance, they appear almost soft, their sharp spikes smoothed by the gentle light, their surfaces dotted, textured, patterned like the skin of some tropical fruit. In this early hour, with the sky still pastel and the bay calm, the esplanade's durian domes feel less like architecture and more like organic forms that have quietly grown here at the water's edge. Each step on the bridge produces a soft, hollow echo. The metal grating beneath you hums faintly with the occasional passing bicycle, vibrations carrying through the structure with a low, musical resonance. Light filters through the metal ribs around you, stripping the walkway with long, fatting shadows that stretch toward the receding night. By the time you reach the opposite side, the colors of the morning have deepened. The horizon toward the east glows with muted gold, the reflected light painting the lower faces of the skyscrapers in faint honey tones. Shadows remain cool and blue, and between light and dark, the city's forms take on a quiet clarity. The domes of the esplanade now show their full detail. Hundreds, thousands of triangular shades casting a delicate pattern of tiny shadows, each one angled with precise intention. Standing by the railing near the esplanade, you can see how the structures sit beside the water like two resting animals, breathing with the city, watching the bay. The reflections of their spiked skins ripple in the gentle movement of the tide, breaking up into shimmering fragments that seem to dance briefly before disappearing. The path along this side of the bay holds a different tone. Here, mature trees line the waterfront, their branches spreading overhead, creating patches of dappled shade even in this soft light. Their leaves glisten faintly with early moisture, and when the breeze passes through, it carries the green scent of foliage, a freshness laced with the sweetness of damp earth and distant blossoms. At your feet, the paving changes a shift in texture, pattern, color. The soles of your shoes feel the difference, the subtle change in grip and sound. Somewhere close, a worker sweeps fallen leaves into neat piles with a straw broom, the bristles making a gentle whisking sound that blends seamlessly into the morning air. No one rushes. The movements of people here are efficient but smooth, almost meditative. The city, even as it wakes, remains calm. Cars begin to move along the nearby road, their engines softened by distance. A taxi pulls up to the curb. Someone steps out in office attire, polished shoes clicking briefly on the pavement before their footsteps are lost in the soft fabric of the morning. The faint grumble of hunger arrives at just the right time, not sharp, not impatient, just a gentle tug reminding you that this waking world has its small pleasures waiting. Somewhere beyond the waterfront, tucked under the edges of the business district, a Kopitiam waits, warm and bright, with its simple morning offerings and familiar rituals. You leave the bay behind for a moment, turning inward. The path from the esplanade leads you under the shade of overhanging trees and into streets where the buildings draw closer together. Glass and steel give way gradually to more modest forms, low-rise blocks, sheltered walkways, covered corridors that protect from sun and rain. The humidity grows slightly stronger away from the open water, but with it comes a new set of smells: toasted bread, coffee, the faint salt of soy sauce, steamed rice. The Kopitiam appears almost unexpectedly, tucked beneath a larger building, open to the air on one side. Its edges blur into the street, plastic stools and simple tables spilling out from beneath fluorescent lights that glow a soft, warm white against the settling dawn. The chairs are red, blue, sometimes green, slightly scuffed from years of use, the tabletops a mosaic of tiny scratches and faint coffee rings. The space is already alive with quiet activity. At one stall, a man in a white t-shirt and shorts works with practiced ease, his movements economical, graceful. He dips slices of bread into a toaster, flips them at just the right moment, spreads kaya, that smooth, pale green coconut jam, in a generous, even layer, its sweet, rich aroma mingling with the buttery smell of toast. Beside him, a slab of cold butter, pale and firm, is sliced into thin rectangles and laid between the warm bread, where it begins to soften slowly, its edges glistening. At another corner, a woman cracks eggs with a swift, gentle tap, slipping them into small, white ceramic saucers to rest over hot water. The shells clink softly into a bucket, one after another, the sound regular and comforting. The eggs themselves tremble faintly, whites turning just opaque while the yolks remain golden and fluid, like small suns waiting to be disturbed. The kopi stall is a quiet performance. A tall metal kettle sits steaming gently on a gas flame, and the uncle behind the counter pours dark coffee through a long cloth sock with a steady, practiced hand. The liquid flows in an aromatic stream, rich and caramel-colored, filling metal mugs that clink softly when set on the counter. Condensed milk, thick and glossy, is spooned into glasses, turning the dark coffee into swirling patterns of brown and cream. The air is full of the scent of roasted beans, sweetness, and the faint metallic tang of the kettles and cups. You take a seat at a small table near the open side of the Kopitiam, where the outside air drifts in freely. The plastic chair bends slightly under your weight, familiar and forgiving. The table is cool to the touch, its surface wiped clean, faintly damp. Around you, conversations pass in murmurs, a few words in one language, a reply in another, a shared laughter as soft as the steam rising from bowls and cups. A plate of kaya toast arrives, set down with a nod and a quiet tap. The bread is thin and crisp at the edges, soft at the center, cut diagonally into little triangles that stack neatly, the kaya catching the light in glossy layers between them. When you lift a piece, the warm toast yields slightly, the kaya spreading just a bit, the butter inside melting into the bread. The first bite is both crunchy and soft, sweet and lightly salty, the coconut and pandan notes unfolding slowly across your tongue. Beside the toast, the soft-boiled eggs wait in their saucers, whites trembling lightly. A small dish of dark soy sauce and a sprinkle of white pepper sit ready. You crack the surface gently with your spoon, breaking the yolk so that it spills in a velvety stream into the white, turning gold and creamy. A dash of soy sauce, a dusting of pepper, and then each spoonful is delicate and warm, both comfortingly simple and deeply satisfying. The eggs slide easily, the flavors balanced. Savory, faintly smoky, rounded by the softness of the texture. The kopi is served in a thick porcelain cup painted with faded green florals, its rim slightly worn. When you lift it, the cup is hot but manageable, the warmth seeping slowly into your fingers, grounding you. The aroma rises first, robust, earthy, with a sweetness that sits beneath the bitterness. The first sip is strong, deeper than many coffees elsewhere, the condensed milk turning its edges smooth, giving it a rich, full body that lingers in the mouth. Each swallow feels like a small awakening, but not a startled one. It is a warm, gradual coming to, as if each sip gently opens another window in your senses. Around you, the rituals of morning etiquette play out in small, polished gestures. Irregular nods to the kopi uncle as his drink arrives, a subtle acknowledgement of hundreds of mornings shared in the same space. A younger office worker places his tray back onto the collection rack when finished, aligning the plates neatly, leaving the table ready for the next person. Two women share a table without speaking much, each absorbed in her own thoughts, sharing only the quiet camaraderie of a shared space, a shared pace. No movement here is wasted. The uncle wipes down a counter with a single sweep of his cloth, then turns to refill a kettle before it empties. A worker replenishes kaya in the metal tin just as the level dips low, never letting it run out. Every action is precise, time-tested, but nothing feels rushed. Efficiency and calm sit side by side, inseparable, like two hands brought together in rest. You sit within this gentle choreography, sipping coffee, taking small bites of kaya toast, spooning the last of the eggs slowly. Outside, the sky has shifted fully into morning, the earlier peaches and grays now replaced by a clearer, higher blue. The Kopitiam's fluorescent lights feel softer now against the ambient daylight, their glow merging with the brightness outside, the boundary between inside and out growing even more porous. As people come and go, the space keeps its presence. Chairs scrape gently on the floor, always with the same familiar sound. Coins exchange hands with a small metallic clink, the occasional note rustling. Someone laughs quietly at a joke shared with the stallholder. A child, still sleepy-eyed, leans against a parent's side, slowly working through a piece of toast, crumbs gathering near their elbows. When you finally stand to leave, your body feels settled, gently awake, anchored by the simple meal and the unspoken rituals of this morning space. You place your empty cup back on the tray, the porcelain making a soft, final chime against the saucer. A nod to the stall, a shared acknowledgement that words don't need to carry. The uncle returns the nod, a half-smile resting at the corner of his mouth before he turns back to the next order. Stepping out from the Kopitiam, the day meets you fully. The air is warmer now, the humidity more pronounced, wrapping around your arms and face like a damp, invisible shawl. The city carries a new rhythm. Traffic flows more steadily, footsteps are more frequent, but the fundamental calm remains. Singapore does not shout. It moves with purpose, but rarely with chaos. You follow a covered walkway toward the main road, sheltered from the sun that now peeks over the tops of the buildings. The shadows here are sharp-edged, lying neatly along the corridor, punctuated by strips of golden light where the cover breaks. The sounds of the city are clearer, crosswalk beeps in measured patterns, buses rolling in, the low murmur of conversations as people move toward offices, schools, meetings. At the edge of a plaza, the entrance to an MRT station opens like a small, precise canyon in the ground, stairs descending into a cool, tiled cavern beneath the surface of the city. The sign above is simple, backlit, steady. People move in and out with fluid, unbroken lines, tapping their cards, walking at speeds just fast enough to be efficient, just slow enough to remain graceful. You pause for a moment at the top of the stairs, feeling the cool breath of conditioned air rising from below, carrying with it the particular scent of MRT stations, a blend of metal rails, filtered air, faint perfume, and the softened traces of thousands of people passing through. Somewhere down there, trains arrive and depart in exact intervals, gliding along lines that thread beneath the riverfront, connecting districts, stories, lives. The river waits not far away, winding through the heart of the city, gathering along its banks the old and the new, the low shophouses and the reflective towers. From here, you can almost sense its presence, water moving in its own gentle time between concrete walls and leafy embankments. Drawn by this quiet current, you let your gaze drift downward toward the escalators and corridors below, imagining how the cool, ordered spaces of the MRT will carry you toward the river, toward bridges and quays, and shaded riverfront walks where the day continues to unfold in slow, steady rhythms. Without hurry, in the softness of a fully awakened morning, you begin to move toward that underground entrance, letting the city's calm precision guide you onward, step by unhurried step, toward the waiting trains and the gentle curve of the river beyond. You descend the stairs into the MRT station, and the world above, the humid morning air, the birdsong, the open sky, recedes gently behind you. The temperature drops with each step, the air growing cooler, drier, filtered, and controlled. The transition is gradual but unmistakable, like passing through an invisible membrane that separates the surface city from this quiet underworld of movement and precision. The station opens before you in clean, geometric lines. The walls are tiled in pale cream and soft gray, smooth and unbroken, except for the occasional signage mounted with perfect alignment. The floor beneath your feet is polished, gleaming faintly under rows of recessed lighting that cast an even, shadowless glow across the space. Everything here feels measured, deliberate, as if each surface has been considered not just for function, but for the calm it might offer to those who pass through. The air carries a particular scent, cool and metallic, with faint traces of cleaning agents and the subtle electrical hum of ventilation systems working invisibly overhead. There is no mustiness, no decay. The station breathes with mechanical efficiency, drawing in air, filtering it, releasing it again in steady, imperceptible cycles. Around you, people move with quiet purpose. A woman in business attire taps her card against the gantry, the soft beep acknowledging her passage. She walks through without breaking stride, her heels clicking softly on the tiles before fading into the gentle acoustic of the platform beyond. An elderly man follows, slower, his movements careful but confident, navigating this space with the ease of countless repetitions. You approach the gantry, tap your card, and the gate opens with a whisper of pneumatic release. The sound is soft, polite, designed not to intrude. You pass through and follow the signs toward the platform, descending another level on escalators that glide smoothly, their metal steps interlocking with a quiet, rhythmic hum. The platform is wide and empty of clutter. Yellow tactile strips mark the edge where the floor meets the air above the tracks. A digital display overhead shows the waiting time, 2 minutes until the next train. People gather in loose clusters, some looking at their phones, others simply standing, waiting in a kind of patient stillness that feels natural here, unhurried despite the precision of the schedule. The sound of an approaching train builds gradually, a low rumble that grows from somewhere deep in the tunnel, followed by a rush of displaced air that arrives a moment before the train itself. The breeze pushes gently against your face, carrying with it the scent of metal and electricity and the faint warmth of friction. Then the train emerges, sleek and white, its headlights bright but not harsh, its body gliding smoothly along the rails until it comes to rest with barely a tremor. The doors open with a gentle chime, a sound that is neither sharp nor intrusive, just a clear musical note that signals transition. You step aboard, and the floor beneath you is steady, clean, the seats upholstered in muted tones of blue and gray. The carriage is half full, passengers seated or standing near the poles, each maintaining a respectful distance, an unspoken etiquette of personal space and shared quietness. The doors close with the same soft chime, and the train begins to move. The acceleration is smooth, almost imperceptible, as if the train is not so much being pushed forward as simply choosing to glide. Through the windows, the station slides away, replaced by the dark walls of the tunnel, punctuated occasionally by service lights that flash past in rhythmic intervals. Inside, the train is remarkably quiet. The hum of the motor is low and constant, blending with the soft rush of air across the exterior. Conversations, when they happen, are muted, people speaking in low tones, mindful of the shared space. A student sits with headphones on, eyes closed, swaying gently with the motion of the train. An older woman reads a paperback, her finger marking her place, the pages yellowed but well kept. The recorded announcements come in multiple languages: English, Mandarin, Malay, Tamil, each voice calm and measured, nomming the next station with the same gentle authority. The words rise and fall in familiar cadences, a linguistic lullaby that marks the passage through the city's hidden veins. Station by station, the train pauses, doors opening to let passengers on and off. Each stop is brief, efficient, the platform appearing for a moment, tiled walls, signs, waiting figures, before disappearing again into darkness. The rhythm of it is soothing, predictable, like the turning of pages or the ticking of a well-made clock. You watch the map above the doors, the stations lighting up in sequence as you pass through them, the colored lines tracing routes across the island. The MRT is a circulatory system, carrying people through tunnels and across bridges, beneath rivers and beside coastlines, connecting neighborhoods and districts in a web of precise, gentle motion. Eventually, the train slows as it approaches Clark Quay. The announcement sounds, and you rise, gripping the pole lightly as the train comes to rest. The doors open, and you step out onto the platform, joining the small stream of people moving toward the exits. The escalators carry you upward, and gradually the artificial coolness gives way to the warmth of the surface world. You emerge into daylight near the river, and the change is immediate. The air thick with humidity again. The sounds of the city no longer filtered through concrete and tile, but arriving directly, unmediated. The Singapore River stretches before you, narrow and calm, its surface reflecting the sky and the buildings that crowd along its banks. The water is a muted greenish-brown, opaque and still, moving so slowly that it seems almost stationary, though if you watch long enough, you can see the faint drift of leaves and foam tracing invisible currents. Along the riverbanks, the walkways are wide and shaded by mature trees, rain trees mostly, their canopies spreading in broad, protective umbrellas. The path is paved in smooth tiles, with benches placed at regular intervals, some occupied by office workers on breaks, others empty and waiting. The river here is bordered by low walls and railings, painted white or left in natural stone, clean and well-maintained. A bumboat drifts past, its engine puttering softly, the sound carrying across the water with a gentle, uneven rhythm. The boat is painted in bright colors, red hull, blue trim, and a handful of tourists sit beneath its canopy, cameras in hand, looking up at the shophouses and modern towers that line the river. The boat's wake spreads in gentle V-shapes across the water, rocking the small floating debris before settling back into stillness. You walk along the riverside path, following the curve of the water as it winds through the heart of the city. Here, the old and new sit side by side without conflict. Colonial-era shophouses, painted in pastel shades of pink and yellow and mint green, stand low and modest, their shuttered windows and tiled roofs preserved with care. Beside them, glass towers rise, their facades reflecting the sky and the river, their lobbies air-conditioned and polished. The civic district begins to reveal itself gradually as you walk. The buildings here carry a different weight, a different presence. They are not tall, but they are solid, built from stone and brick, with columns and pediments and deep-set windows that speak of another era, another vision of what a city might be. The Asian Civilizations Museum appears across the river, its neoclassical facade pale against the blue sky. The building is stately, symmetrical, its columns rising in clean vertical lines, its steps broad and inviting. The stone is cream-colored, glowing warmly in the midday light, and the structure sits beside the river with quiet dignity, as if it has always been there, as if it will remain long after the present moment has faded into memory. You cross a small bridge, its railings painted white, its surface slightly arched to allow clearance for the passing boats below. From the center of the bridge, the view opens in both directions, upriver toward the newer developments, their glass and steel catching the sun, and downriver toward the bay, where the water widens and the city spreads low and green toward the sea. On the far side of the bridge, the path continues along the river's edge, and the atmosphere shifts subtly. The pace here feels slower, more contemplative. People walk without rushing, stopping occasionally to look at the water or to read the plaques that mark historical sites, Raffles Landing, the old trading posts, the places where the city's story began. The National Gallery rises ahead, its architecture a study in contrasts. Two former colonial buildings, City Hall and the old Supreme Court, have been joined by a modern canopy of glass and steel, the new structure nestling between the old like a bridge between eras. The columns of the original buildings remain, classical and proportioned, while above them the contemporary roof floats, light and transparent, allowing the sky to filter through in dappled patterns. The gallery's exterior is painted in soft cream, the stone cleaned and restored, the details, cornices, moldings, balustrades, preserved with meticulous care. The building does not shout. It rests beside the river with the same quiet confidence as the museum across the water, secure in its purpose, patient in its presence. You walk beneath the shade of the trees that line the approach to the gallery, their roots breaking through the soil in thick, gnarled patterns, their branches spreading wide overhead. The light here is filtered green, soft and cool, and the air smells of earth and leaves and the faint, distant salt of the sea. A few people sit on the steps of the gallery, not entering, just resting, watching the river and the slow drift of boats and the play of light on water. Their conversations are quiet, their movements relaxed. Time here feels elastic, unhurried, as if the civic district exists slightly outside the usual rhythms of the city, a pocket where history and modernity have reached a kind of gentle truce. You continue along the riverside, passing beneath covered walkways that offer shade from the growing heat of the day. The sun is higher now, its light falling more directly, and the shadows have shortened, pooling beneath benches and trees and the overhangs of buildings. The humidity wraps around you like a warm towel, but the breeze from the river tempers it, carrying with it the scent of water and wet stone and the occasional waft of food from a nearby cafe. The path leads you gradually away from the river, guiding you through a small park where the grass is neatly trimmed and children play on a low playground, their laughter soft and intermittent. Beyond the park, the city opens again, and in the distance, you can see the shapes of the Supertrees rising above the skyline, those strange, towering structures that belong to gardens by the bay, their canopies spreading like enormous ferns against the sky. You pause for a moment, looking back toward the civic district, toward the river and the museum and the gallery, toward the quiet dignity of those colonial buildings standing beside the water. The scene holds a particular stillness, a sense of permanence that contrasts with the constant movement of the modern city around it. Then you turn, facing the direction of the Supertrees, and begin to walk. The path ahead is clear, shaded in places, open in others, winding through the edges of the city toward those gardens where nature and technology have been woven together in forms that defy easy categorization, where the tropical green meets steel and glass in structures that reach toward the sky like dreams rendered in concrete and light. The river fades behind you, its quiet presence remaining in memory as you move forward, step by unhurried step, toward the waiting gardens and the strange, beautiful silhouettes that rise above them, beckoning softly in the warm, humid air. You return toward the water, and the city opens once more in front of you. The river has fallen behind, leaving in its place the broader sweep of Marina Bay, the towers framing the horizon, the sky higher and brighter now. The air is warm but not yet at its fiercest. The morning still carries a trace of gentleness, a softness at the edges of each sound. Ahead, the Helix Bridge rises in a slow, elegant spiral over the bay, its metallic coils twisting in graceful arcs that catch the light like strands of polished silver. You approach it at an unhurried pace, footsteps joining the faint resonance of others who cross, workers, joggers, a few early visitors moving in easy lines across the water. The bridge's curves feel almost organic, as if some giant ribbon has been unfurled here and frozen in midair, connecting one shore to the other. As you step onto the bridge, the texture underfoot changes from smooth stone to brushed metal. The soles of your shoes make a different sound now, a gentle, hollow tap that echoes softly between the steel ribs overhead. Sunlight slips through the spiraling framework in narrow bands, painting the walkway with overlapping shapes of shadow and brightness. With each step, the patterns shift, sliding across the ground, across your arms, across the faces of those passing by. The bay lies beneath you in calm, glassy stretches broken only by the occasional ripple of a passing boat. The reflections of towers and domes and the lotus-like museum tremble faintly on the surface, their forms bending and reforming with the subtle movements of the water. A breeze passes over the bridge, stronger here above the open water, carrying with it the faint salt of the sea and the far-off scent of gardens waiting ahead. You pause partway across, resting your hands lightly on the railing. From here, Marina Bay Sands rises in its full height, the three towers standing like sentinels, the skypark at their summit curving gently, a vessel resting in suspension. To one side, the Art Science Museum's white petals are fully awake now, catching the brightness of day. To the other, the low forms of the esplanade watches from across the water, its spiked domes softened by distance. Just beyond the hotel's base, the gardens wait, a swath of curated green stretching toward the horizon, punctuated by the vertical silhouettes of the Supertrees. Even from here, they look otherworldly, gigantic trunks rising out of the ground, flaring at the top into wide, branching forms that seem part tree, part lattice, part dream. Their presence is calm but unmistakable, like quiet guardians standing watch at the edge of the bay. You continue across the Helix Bridge, the sounds of the city shifting with each step. Behind you, the busy roads and office towers hum with daytime energy. Ahead, the space seems to open, the air feels looser, and the visual texture of concrete and glass begins to soften, replaced gradually by green. On the far side, the path curves gently around the base of the hotel, leading you through shaded walkways and small patches of lawn. The hum of traffic recedes as you approach the entrance to gardens by the bay, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the layered sounds of birdsong woven together with distant voices. The gardens do not begin abruptly. They arrive in stages. The first hint is the sight of tall palms and flowering shrubs arranged in gentle terraces, their leaves shining in the sun. You pass under the soft shade of a grove of trees, their branches reaching overhead, casting dappled shadow along the path. The ground smells of damp soil and greenery, mingled with a subtle sweetness from flowering plants, frangipani perhaps, or some tropical blossom that seems to carry summer in its scent. As you move deeper, the city's hard edges fall away almost entirely. Here, paths curve rather than follow straight lines. Edges blur where manicured lawns meet wild-looking clusters of foliage. A small canal of water glides beside the walkway for a while, its surface quiet, catching reflections of leaves overhead and patches of sky. Children's voices float faintly from a distant play area, softened by distance and layers of vegetation. A gardener pushes a cart along a side path, the wheels creaking softly, his movements slow and deliberate as he pauses to trim a branch, adjust a planter, brush a stray leaf from a stone. No one seems hurried. Even within the careful planning of these gardens, everything breathes. The supertrees rise now in full view, towering above the rest of the canopy. Up close, their scale becomes real. Each trunk is wrapped in vertical planting panels, densely layered with ferns, orchids, and climbing plants that cling to the structure, turning steel into a living surface. The trunks rise straight and tall before flaring outward near the top, where radial branches form wide crowns latticed against the sky. Standing at the base of one, you can see how the vines and fronds create a tapestry of green, punctuated by bursts of color from blossoms. The smell here is different from the rest of the gardens, catching microclimates between the plants. Earthy, moist, a little sweet, with faint traces of moss and bark and petals warmed by the sun. You tilt your head back and follow the lines of the supertrees limbs upward to where they spread out into a wide, circular canopy. The gaps between the structural branches form delicate geometric patterns through which the blue of the sky appears in irregular shapes. A slight breeze whispers through the spaces, making leaves flutter and ferns sway, adding a gentle, perpetual motion to these towering structures. Around you, the ground is open and walkable, though never bare. Low shrubs, flowering borders, and seating areas curve around the tree bases. People wander, some pausing to take photos, others simply standing and looking up. Yet the sound never tips into chaos. Voices stay low, footsteps remain measured, and an unspoken agreement of shared quiet seems to hold the space together. The supertrees appear almost like sentient beings, ancient and futuristic at once. They are part garden, part sculpture, part architecture, blending the natural and the design so thoroughly that the boundary between them starts to feel irrelevant. You circle one slowly, fingers brushing the textured bark of creeping plants, absorbing the small details. The tiny new fronds unfurling from crevices, the spider's web catching a single strand of sunlight, the droplets of moisture clinging to shaded leaves. Beyond the grove of supertrees, the cool interior of the cloud forest waits. From this distance, the conservatory looks like a vast glass shell resting gently on the ground, its curved roof sweeping low and long, reflecting the sky in soft, diffused curves. Its form is inviting, like a giant bubble capturing an entirely different atmosphere within. Outside the entrance, the air is warm and bright. Glass panels catch the sun, turning it into a shimmer of light across the structure. As you step through the doors, the world shifts. Cool air wraps around you instantly, flowing over your skin like clear water. The humidity drops, the temperature falls. The outside heat becomes a memory. Inside the cloud forest, the light is gentler, filtered through layers of glass and mist. And there, at the center of everything, a waterfall descends from a great height, a white, continuous curtain of water pouring down the face of a lush, planted mountain. The sound of the waterfall is a constant hush, full and soft, as though the entire space is inhaling and exhaling through water. It fills the conservatory without overwhelming it, a white noise that smooths the edges of every other sound. The murmur of voices, the faint whirring of fans, the quiet footsteps on damp pathways. You feel it as much as hear it, a subtle vibration in the air, in the floor beneath your feet. Mist rises from the base of the waterfall, drifting outward in cool veils that kiss your face and arms. Droplets cling to your eyelashes, leaving the world briefly blurred before you blink them away. The planted mountain is dense with greenery, ferns, mosses, bromeliads, orchids, layered in a tapestry of textures and shades. Leaves of all sizes and shapes overlap. Thin, feathery fronds, thick, waxy foliage, delicate tendrils that curl around rock and climbing frames. You begin to walk along the path that spirals gently around the mountain's base. The stone beneath your feet is slightly damp, darkened by the ever-present mist. The air smells of wet earth and living plants, of moss and mineral and something faintly floral. It is the scent of highland forests, compressed and preserved under glass in the heart of a tropical city. Tiny droplets hang from leaves like strings of clear beads. When they fall, they land in quiet, almost inaudible taps on the broad surfaces below, adding another layer to the space's subtle music. The light streaming through the conservatory's glass shifts as clouds pass overhead or as the sun changes angle, creating slow-moving highlights on leaves and the waterfall's shifting surface. You step onto an elevator that carries you upward, the doors closing with a quiet sigh. As you ascend, the waterfall's top comes into view, water appearing suddenly from hidden channels, spilling over the edge and beginning its endless fall into the pool below. The mist seems denser up here, drifting across your path in cool, swirling sheets. From the upper platform, walkways extend outward into the space, narrow, suspended paths with glass or mesh sides, curving gently along the outer contours of the mountain. You step onto one, and the sensation is like walking through the air itself. Below, the planted slopes drop steeply into a soft green abyss. Above, the curved glass ceiling arches high, dotted lightly with condensation. Air circulates quietly, keeping the temperature consistent, bringing fresh coolness to your face with each breath. The waterfall is now beside you, its roar still a hush but nearer, the individual strands of water visible, breaking into droplets that scatter light into subtle rainbows. When the breeze from the ventilation shifts, a fine spray drifts across the walkway, leaving your skin and clothes dusted with cool moisture. As you move along the elevated path, the city outside feels impossibly distant. You are inside a suspended landscape, a fragment of cooler, higher climates transplanted into the equatorial warmth. Here, time stretches. You walk slowly, pausing often to look down at the pool below, where the waterfall crashes into foam that quickly settles into a still, reflective surface, or up at the canopy of leaves and glass above, where the outlines of higher walkways trace gentle arcs through the mist. The cloud forest feels like a dream carefully constructed, part memory of mountains, part engineering, part imagination. Nature is everywhere but gently guided, arranged so that each plant has its place, each view a composition. And yet nothing feels rigid. Plants grow into the spaces given to them, leaves overlapping, roots exploring, mosses softening the lines of concrete and steel. The quiet here invites reflection. You think of the heat outside, of the dense tropical air pressing against the city, and of this cool interior world, this highland climate captured in a shell of glass. It is a kind of breathing, the city exhaling heat, the cloud forest inhaling it, transforming it into this gentle, cool, green space. People move along the paths with subdued voices, their steps cushioned by the damp flooring. Even children speak more softly here, their excitement channeled into wide eyes and whispered exclamations. The waterfall, constant and patient, gathers their sounds and folds them into its own continuous murmur. You follow the walkways as they curve downward, circling the mountain in slow spirals that bring you level by level back toward the ground. Along the way, Small pockets open, alcoves where you can sit briefly, windows where you can look outward and see the silhouette of the supertrees through the condensation, blurred and softened as if you are peering out from inside a cloud. Finally, you reach the base again. Standing at the bottom of the waterfall, you look up, following the path your steps traced from below to above and back again. The water descends in a never-ending sheet, its surface shifting constantly, reflecting the changing light in an infinite series of small variations. It is both movement and stillness, energy and calm. Lingering for a moment more, you notice the way the mist clings to your skin, the way the cool air has changed your sense of the day, making everything outside feel further away, the sounds more muted in memory. Leaving this space feels a little like waking from a dream, gentle, reluctant, but necessary. You pass through the doors once more and warmth returns, wrapping around you with familiar weight. The brightness of the tropical day greets you, vivid after the subdued interior light. The supertrees stand nearby, their green-clad trunks catching the sun, their crowns filtering light in intricate patterns onto the ground. You walk slowly along the garden paths again, noticing anew the textures of leaves, the intense colors of tropical flowers, the sunlight playing on surfaces that were hidden in cloud-filtered shade. The cool dream of the cloud forest lingers in your body, a residual freshness in your lungs, a memory of mist on your skin, even as the warmth seeps back into your limbs. As you wander between beds of ornamental grasses and clusters of flowering shrubs, another sensation begins to make itself known. It is subtle at first, then more insistent, a familiar hollowing under the ribs, a soft pull that is neither urgent nor ignorable. Hunger, arising gently, aligning itself with the approaching midday. The air carries new scents now, drifting in from the fringes of the gardens and the city beyond. The smoky char of grilled meats, the rich depth of broth simmering in large metal pots, garlic and chili blooming in hot oil, the toasted scent of rice and noodles as they meet the wok's surface. These aromas weave through the greenery, threads of comfort and promise stitching between trees and flowers. You let the smell guide you, stepping out of the garden's green corridors and back toward the arteries of the city. Somewhere nearby, beneath a wide, sheltering roof, a hawker center waits, bright, bustling yet somehow orderly, where stalls line up in tidy rows and bowls, plates, and chopsticks move in constant, gentle rhythm. The supertrees recede behind you, their silhouettes framed now against the open sky. The cool dream of the cloud forest settles into memory as the warmth of the day and the pull of an upcoming meal lead you onward, step by step, toward that familiar chorus of clattering crockery, steaming pots, and the comforting glow of shared food waiting just ahead. The hawker center appears first as a low, sheltering roof beyond the trees, a broad structure open at the sides so that the warm air can move freely through it. You follow the faint clatter of plates and the soft hum of voices until the path gives way to tiled flooring, and you step into the heart of Maxwell Food Center. The light here feels different from the gardens outside. It filters through ceiling fans and fluorescent tubes, through gaps where daylight seeps in from the open edges. Stalls line both sides of the long aisles, their signboards painted in vivid colors, reds, yellows, greens, each bearing names and pictures and prices arranged in neat rows. Behind the counters, stainless steel surfaces gleam under the lights, punctuated by stacks of bowls, chopping boards, and tongs that blink briefly as they catch the reflections. The air is dense with aroma. Steam rises from rice cookers in quiet, steady plumes. You catch the fragrant warmth of chicken broth simmering in deep metal pots, the sharpness of ginger and scallion, the clean, comforting scent of rice cooked in stock. Somewhere nearby, oil hisses softly as dough meets heat, and the faint char of grill smoke drifts overhead, carrying with it hints of sauté marinade, soy, sugar, lemongrass, and something smoky sweet that settles briefly at the back of your throat. The soundscape is a soft orchestra, metal ladles tapping against woks, the dull thud of cleavers chopping through tender meat, the gentle scrape of chopsticks against porcelain. Conversations float and overlap, short exchanges with stallholders, murmured discussions over which dish to choose, the occasional laughter that rises and falls quickly before dissolving back into the background hum. In this enclosed but open space, every sound feels close yet never overwhelming. You drift toward a stall where Hainanese chicken rice is being prepared with steady, practiced movements. Plump, pale chickens rest in a neat row, hanging from metal hooks, their skin glossy and smooth. Beside them, a large pot of rice releases curling ribbons of steam each time the lid is lifted, the grains inside pearly and fragrant, glistening with the essence of chicken fat, ginger, and garlic. The stallholder moves with quiet efficiency. He lifts a chicken onto a chopping board, the wood darkened from countless servings, and his cleaver rises and falls in precise strokes. Each cut is assured but unhurried, pieces arranged neatly on a plate, bone and slices fanned out, skin intact, glistening under the warm lights. A ladle of light, clear broth is poured into a small bowl, a sprig of coriander floating on the surface. On the side, 3 dipping sauces wait: bright chili, dark soy, and a pale ginger scallion mix, each smoothed flat in its own compartment. You carry your tray through the orderly maze of tables, long shared benches, their surfaces cool and smooth to the touch. Sunlight sneaks in along the edges of the hawker center, drawing lines of brightness across the tiled floor. Ceiling fans turn lazily above, moving the warm air just enough to keep it comfortable, blending food scents into a single, comforting haze. Seated at a table, you take in the plate before you. The rice is modest in appearance but rich in fragrance, each grain distinct yet infused with flavor. The chicken glows softly, a thin layer of jelly beneath the skin promising tenderness. When you take the first bite, the textures unfold, the chicken yielding with almost no resistance, juicy and delicate, the rice supporting it with savory depth. A dab of chili brings gentle heat. The ginger scallion mixture adds a bright, green sharpness that wakes the palate without startling it. Nearby, another stall sends threads of sauté smoke drifting slowly into the air. At a small charcoal grill, skewers of marinated meat, chicken, beef, perhaps mutton, are laid in neat rows over glowing embers. The flames rise only in tiny flickers, kissing the meat with points of orange before falling back. Fat drips and sizzles, releasing aromas that mingle with the rest of the hawker center like an invitation. The skewers are turned with deft, economical motions, each rotation timed so that no piece lingers too long in the direct heat. At a table close by, a shared plate of sauté rests on wax paper, skewers fanning outward, the ends darkened slightly by the grill, the meat lacquered in a sheen of caramelized marinade. A bowl of thick peanut sauce anchors the center, its surface dimpled with oil and flecks of chili. The scent of roasted nuts and spice floats gently toward you, mingling with the more delicate aromas of broth and rice and tea. Around you, the hawker center settles into its midday rhythm. Office workers sit in small groups, shirt sleeves rolled up, lanyards tucked into pockets. A family shares a spread of dishes, noodles, soups, stir-fried greens, arranged across the table, chopsticks moving in easy, familiar patterns. An older man sits alone with a simple bowl of soup and a plate of rice, eating slowly, gaze wandering between bites. Your own meal finishes without fanfare. The chicken rice reduced to a few scattered grains, the bowl of broth nearly empty, a thin film of fat tracing circles on the surface. You rise, return your tray to the collection point where dishes gather in neat stacks, and step back out of the hawker center into the full light of day. The air outside feels hotter now, the humidity thicker after the shade of the food hall. You walk toward Chinatown, following the slow flow of pedestrians along the covered sidewalks. The transition happens gradually. Glass and steel recede, and the buildings lower and compress, becoming more intimate in scale. The colors shift, too, cream and gray giving way to ochres, reds, and deep greens. Chinatown's shophouses line the streets in continuous rows, their upper levels shaded by wooden shutters painted in turquoise, maroon, jade. The facades are decorated with delicate plasterwork, Floral motifs, geometric patterns, small details picked out in contrasting hues that time and weather have softened without erasing. 5-foot ways, the covered corridors that run along the storefronts, offer shaded paths, their tiled floors cool and worn underfoot. Signs hang from the eaves, vertical, horizontal, some carved in wood, others printed on glowing plastic boards. The fonts vary, traditional calligraphy, block letters, stylized logos, but all suspend in the same warm air, overlapping in layers overhead. The scent of incense filters from small altars tucked into corners, tables with oranges and joss sticks, and folded paper offerings resting against walls painted in faded shades. As you walk deeper into the district, the clamor of commerce softens. The larger crowds thin and the side streets become narrower, quieter. Laundry hangs from upper-floor balconies, shirts and towels and cheongsams swaying lazily in the slight breeze. Potted plants cluster near doorways, ferns, jasmine. Money plants climbing trellises, adding patches of green to the brick and plaster. At a junction, the roofline dips and the gopuram of a temple rises before you, Sri Mariamman, its colorful tower brimming with carved figures and intricate detailing. The temple walls are white and terracotta, the entrance framed by pillars painted with care. The street here narrows, the pace slows. You pause at the edge, just outside the threshold, where shoes and sandals rest in neat rows along the steps. The air carries a different fragrance now, a mixture of incense, ghee, sandalwood, and jasmine flowers strung into garlands. Somewhere within, a bell sounds, a clear, gentle chime that rises and falls with ritual rhythm. The sound is neither loud nor insistent. It seems to float, to weave between the figures of gods and guardians adorning the temple gateway. Chanting hums quietly beneath the bell's notes, voices layered in a soft, undulating pattern. You stand for a moment in this threshold space, watching people enter and exit. A woman in a bright sari steps carefully through the doorway, palms pressed together, eyes lowered. A man in office attire pauses to slip off his shoes before crossing into the inner courtyard, leaving his briefcase beside the entrance. A child clings to a parent's hand, gaze wandering upward toward the riot of sculpted figures overhead. The bell rings again, lighter this time, as if acknowledging another transition, the passage of time, the turning of the day, the movement of people through the temple's orbit. Then it fades back into the background, leaving only the lingering shimmer of its presence in the warm, scented air. You continue along the shophouse corridors, the shadows deepening where the overhangs extend farther from the facades. Here and there, a fan mounted above a doorway turns slowly, stirring the air. The ground underfoot changes from smooth tile to slightly uneven stone, then back again. Sunlight flashes briefly at each street crossing, then disappears as you return to the cool embrace of the covered walkway. A small tea room reveals itself not with neon or loud signage, but through a quieter invitation. Wooden doors stand open, revealing a dim, cool interior framed by dark timber and shelves lined with tea canisters. A simple wooden sign hangs above the entrance, its characters brushed in black ink, edges worn smooth from years of weather and attention. Inside, the air is cooler and carries a different weight. The scents are more subtle here, dried leaves, toasted and floral, woody and mineral. A faint sweetness lingers, perhaps from older brews, absorbed into the grain of the tables and shelves over time. Light enters through a few high windows and through the open doorway, diffused by paper screens and bamboo shades, falling in quiet patches across the floor. You take a seat at a low wooden table, its surface polished by countless elbows and cups. The chair creaks softly but feels solid, its edges shaped to fit the curve of a resting body. Around you, shelves hold tightly sealed tins labeled in script, oolong, pu'er, longjing, taiguanian. Yixing clay teapots, small and rounded, sit in careful rows beside porcelain gawans painted with simple blue patterns. At a counter, the tea master moves with attentive calm. He selects leaves from a tin dark, tightly rolled oolong or compressed pu'er broken gently from a larger cake. The dry leaves rustle softly as they fall into a small clay pot, releasing the faintest whiff of their latent character. A kettle rests nearby, steam breathing steadily from its spout, not screaming but whispering, the water within kept at just the right temperature. He pours hot water into the pot in a smooth, continuous motion, then just as fluidly pours it out again into a waste bowl. This first rinse, a brief awakening of the leaves. The aroma shifts instantly, growing rounder, deeper. Then he fills the pot once more, this time letting the water linger, the seconds passing in a slow, mindful count that lives entirely in his hands. The first infusion is poured into a fairness pitcher, then into small, handleless cups. The liquid glows amber or deep gold, depending on the tea, clear and luminous in the low light. When you lift the cup, it warms your fingertips, its weight reassuring but light enough to feel almost delicate. The first sip is taken without hurry, letting the tea settle on the tongue, spreading quiet heat down the throat and into the chest. If it is oolong, floral notes might unfurl, orchid, honey, a hint of stone fruit, layered over a roasted undertone that grounds the fragrance. If it is pyre, the taste moves earthward, mushroom, wet wood, autumn leaves after rain, deep and rounded, with a sweetness that emerges only after the swallow. Each sip feels like a small, private pause, a moment that exists only within the boundaries of cup and breath. Around you, older locals sit at other tables, engaged in their own rituals. One man reads a folded newspaper, the pages crackling softly as he turns them, his glasses perched low on his nose. He pauses occasionally, lifts his cup, takes a measured sip, and sets it down with the care of someone who has repeated this movement thousands of times. A pair of friends sits at a nearby table, speaking quietly in low voices, their tones comfortable and unhurried. They pour for each other, cups never filled to the brim, always topped up at just the right intervals. The kettle is refilled, reheated, poured again. The same leaves yield multiple infusions, each slightly different from the last, lighter, sweeter, more transparent. Time in this room is marked not by clocks or phones, but by the changing character of the tea, by the soft clink of lids against clay, by the way steam curls from freshly poured cups. The bustle of Chinatown seems to dissolve at the threshold. You can still sense it faintly, the low swell of voices, the occasional roll of a passing cart, a distant motorbike. But inside, those sounds are hushed, held at bay by wood and paper and the steady, centering presence of hot water meeting leaf. The tea anchors you to the moment, letting thoughts drift in and out without urgency. You lose track for a while of how many infusions have been poured. The flavors have softened, stretching out like the afternoon light that now falls more obliquely through the screened windows. Shadows lengthen along the floorboards. The tea master moves at the same pace as before, unhurried, unaltered by the passing hours. Ritual here is its own kind of timekeeping. Eventually, the leaves give all they have to give. The final infusion is pale, delicate, a whisper of what once was robust. You finish it with the same attention as the first, a small acknowledgement of the full circle of the brew. Setting the cup down, you feel a quiet warmth spreading through your chest and limbs, a different kind of fullness from the hawker lunch. Less about satiation than about having been gently, persistently comforted. Stepping back out into the corridor of shophouses, the day greets you again, but it feels a little softer around the edges. The colors of Chinatown, reds, golds, greens, seem less insistent now, more like part of a tapestry you can move through at your own pace. A light breeze stirs the hanging lanterns strung across the street, making them sway almost imperceptibly against the sky. You begin to walk, following the flow of the street as it bends and branches. The signs start to change language and style. The storefronts shift from old clan associations and medicinal halls to quieter, more residential facades. Gradually, almost without your noticing exactly when, the atmosphere leans towards something different. Less of the tight, historic grid of Chinatown, more of the layered, pastel world of the Peranakan heritage. Tilework appears beneath your feet in intricate patterns, and you glimpse, further ahead, shophouses in soft blues and pinks and mint greens, their facades adorned with carved shutters and colored vents, each detail carrying a memory of blended cultures. The air holds the promise of new textures, new colors, new stories layered into walls and walkways. Drawn forward by this gentle shift, you let your steps lengthen just enough to match the rhythm of the neighborhood's transition. Chinatown's incense and tea and temple bells recede behind you, lingering as a quiet echo as you drift toward the Peranakan district, toward terrace houses and floral tiles, toward another facet of the city's soul waiting just around the next, unhurried corner. The pastel houses appear first as a suggestion of color at the far end of the street, a soft band of blues and pinks and mint greens shimmering slightly in the afternoon warmth. As you come closer, the shapes sharpen into shophouses, lined shoulder to shoulder like a row of old friends, each dressed in its own careful pattern, each face both similar and distinct. You walk along the narrow pavement of Ju Chiat, the sun resting heavily on the roofs above while the 5-foot ways below remain in gentle shade. The air is warm, dense with humidity, but the overhangs shield you from the direct glare. Shadows stretch in elongated rectangles along the tiled corridors, broken by shafts of light that fall through between buildings and across the patterned floors. The Peranakan shophouses stand 2 stories high, their facades painted in pastel tones that seem to hold the memory of earlier decades: powder blue, pale lilac, soft peach, pistachio green. Window shutters, carved and framed, are painted in slightly deeper hues, their louvered slats half open, half closed, giving the impression of eyes half-lidded in afternoon contemplation. Decorative plasterwork curls along the edges of balconies and around window frames, flowers and vines and geometric lines traced in relief, catching the light in subtle shadows. At your feet, the tiles tell their own quiet story. Under the shade of the 5-foot way, the floor is a mosaic of patterns, floral motifs, repeating circles, starbursts in teal, maroon, cream. Some tiles are glossy with age, their surfaces smoothed by years of footsteps, while others retain their fine, matte finish, as if they were laid only recently. The cool touch of ceramic comes through the soles of your shoes, anchoring you to the corridor's slow rhythm. You move at an unhurried pace, letting your gaze wander from one shophouse to the next. Each has variations: a slightly different balcony railing, a different style of vent above the door, a pair of ceramic guardian lions at one threshold, a simple wooden stool at another. Some frontages hold small altars with offerings, a bowl of fruit, a cup of tea, incense sticks burned low to ash. The faint scent of incense lingers near these doorways, mixing with the warm smell of sun-heated paint and plaster. The street itself is surprisingly quiet. Cars pass occasionally, their engines softened by distance. A bicycle rolls by, spokes ticking gently as it coasts. A cat dozes on a step, stretched long in a patch of sunlight that pools just short of the shaded corridor. Further along, laundry hangs from upper balconies, shirts, sarongs, dresses, towels swaying slowly in the small movement of air. Somewhere nearby, the smell of pandan drifts gently through the heat. It carries a green sweetness, almost floral, that mingles with the richer scent of coconut and butter. You turn a corner and find a heritage bakery tucked beneath one of the shophouses, its wooden signboard simple and worn, its glass display case slightly fogged from the warmth inside. The bakery breathes warmth and sugar into the corridor. Inside, metal trays hold neat rows of layered, jelly-like cakes in shades of green and white and pink, glutinous rice topped with coconut palm sugar tucked into soft dough. The air is heavy with the fragrance of pandan leaves, grated coconut, melted gula melaka, and the faint smokiness of baked pastry. Behind the counter, someone arranges fresh batches with gentle hands, straightening lines, wiping a few stray crumbs from the glass. You step just inside, crossing the threshold where the cool tiles of the corridor meet the slightly warmer floor of the shop. The fans mounted near the ceiling spin steadily, stirring the sweet air into slow currents. A couple of older customers stand at the counter, making their selections quietly, their conversation folded into the rhythm of plastic bags unfolding, tongs clinking lightly against metal trays, coins and notes exchanging hands. You choose something simple, perhaps a slice of pandan chiffon cake, its crumb airy and soft, its color a gentle, luminous green. When you lift it, the texture yields easily, and the scent grows stronger, grassy, sweet, familiar. The first bite dissolves almost immediately on your tongue, leaving behind its fragrance and a hint of vanilla, a memory of domestic kitchens and afternoon tea. It is light yet satisfying, a small edible fragment of the neighborhood's layered past. Back outside, you continue along the quiet lanes of Ju Chiat. The streets narrow in places, widening in others, forming a loose grid that feels more like a village than a city district. Here and there, newer buildings appear, modern apartments, cafes with minimalist signage, but the older shophouses still define the texture of the area, their colors and details tying the streets together into a coherent, gentle tapestry. The architecture here is a fusion rendered in wood and plaster and tile. Chinese motifs trace themselves along balcony railings and window grills. European influences appear in arches and columns and decorative cornices. Malay and Indonesian aesthetics whisper from carved panels and floral designs. The Peranakan houses bear these influences not as competing elements, but as layers that have settled together over time into a single, harmonious whole. You pass a house whose facade is painted a cool, powder blue, its windows framed in white, its shutters a slightly deeper aquamarine. The base of its columns is tiled in intricate patterns of pink and green flowers, and at the entrance, porcelain tiles decorated with auspicious characters line the risers of the steps. Next door, a house in pale rose stands with olive green shutters and cream trim, its plaster moldings depicting birds in flight and curling vines that climb up the walls. On another street, the 5-foot ways form a continuous shaded ribbon, unbroken from one end of the block to the other. You walk this corridor as if moving through a single extended room, passing front doors, small tables, potted plants. In one recessed doorway, a small rattan chair sits empty, clearly a favorite spot for someone to watch the street in the cool of evening. In another, a row of slippers lines up in various sizes and colors, neatly arranged. The smells shift with each handful of houses you pass. One doorway breathes out the savory aroma of something simmering, perhaps curry or braised meat, rich and spiced, filling the afternoon air with depth. Another releases the subtle fragrance of jasmine tea, faint but distinct, escaping from an unseen pot in some interior kitchen. Somewhere further on, the sharper scent of chili frying in oil cuts briefly through the air, then fades as quickly as it arrived, leaving behind only the lingering warmth of spices. The afternoon heat, though still intense, is softened by the narrowness of the lanes and the protection of trees. A few old rain trees arch overhead, their branches spreading wide, their leaves filtering the sunlight into a mottled glow that dances gently on the pastel facades. Every so often, a small cafe or shop invites with open doors, framed by vintage tiles, decorated with old enamel tiffins, enamel mugs, framed photographs of families and streets from decades ago. You pause at a quiet corner where two lanes meet, forming a small, triangular open space. Here, the shophouses open slightly away from each other, and the sky feels closer. A shrine sits at the corner, sheltered beneath a simple red-tiled roof, its interior lit by a single candle that burns steadily in the still air. The smell of wax and faint incense lingers in this little pocket of space, where the sounds of the surrounding streets are muted. As you stand there, a gentle awareness arises. Singapore's multicultural soul is not something abstract or distant. It is present in these details, in the way colors are chosen, in the combinations of motifs on tiles and woodwork, in the smells that drift from kitchens, in the languages layered quietly into signboards and conversations. The district is not a museum. It is a living, breathing neighborhood, shaped by families who have grown up within these walls, by recipes handed down, by stories told at tables and doorways. A Malay song drifts faintly from a radio somewhere upstairs, mingling with the murmur of a television in another language further down the lane. A Chinese auntie sweeps the corridor in front of her home, her broom moving in steady strokes, while a neighbor in a batik shirt waters potted plants, the water splashing softly into ceramic pots painted with phoenixes and peonies. A bicycle leans against a column, its basket filled with small groceries, green vegetables, a loaf of bread, a plastic bag of eggs. You begin to walk again, letting the lanes lead you without a strict plan. Some streets run straight, others curve gently, revealing new rows of shophouses bit by bit. Occasionally, an alley cuts between blocks, offering brief glimpses of backyards filled with drying laundry, bicycle wheels, old chairs, and flowering shrubs that spill over fences. In one such alley, you catch the gentle clink of porcelain as someone washes dishes, water flowing into a basin, then out again into a drain that carries it away in a quiet stream. In another, you hear laughter low, easy, as neighbors share a story, voices rising and falling, punctuated by pauses that say as much as the words themselves. The sun begins its slow descent toward late afternoon, and the light changes. Shadows grow longer, stretching across the tiled corridors in soft bands. The pastel facades take on a warmer tone, the colors deepening as the sun's angle lowers. The heat, though still present, loses its harshness, becoming something heavier and slower, easier to live inside of. You feel the day lengthening behind you, the morning at Marina Bay, the gardens, the hawker center, the tea room, now this pastel labyrinth of Peranakan heritage, all layering into a single, continuous walk. The city reveals itself not as separate districts, but as one long breath inhaled through many different rooms. As the afternoon eases, a desire for shade and stillness begins to surface again, gentle but persistent. Thoughts drift toward another enclave of color and fragrance, another district shaped by different histories and rhythms. Little India, where garlands of marigold and jasmine hang in strings, where spice shops line the streets with jars of turmeric, cumin, cardamom, where temples and storefronts and music weave together into their own distinctive texture. You follow a lane that leads gradually back toward a larger road, leaving behind the narrower, more intimate corridors of Ju Chiat. The pastel shophouses recede into a soft band of color in your memory, their tiles and shutters and carvings still vivid inside you. The air feels just a little cooler now, the sun's bite less intense, the breeze more willing to move. With the slow, steady pace that has carried you through the day, you begin to drift toward Little India, seeking shade and new colors, ready to step from one cultural tapestry into another, letting the city continue to unfold in all its quiet, intricate layers beneath the softening afternoon sky. You arrive in Little India as the afternoon leans toward evening, the light softening, the shadows lengthening along the edges of the streets. The air feels a little thicker here, filled with scents that seem to come from every direction at once, spices warmed by the day, incense curling from shrines, flowers breathing sweetness into the humid air. Along Serangoon Road, garland stalls line the walkway in bright, fragrant clusters. Strings of jasmine hang in white cascades, each tiny bud folded tightly, exuding a delicate, creamy scent that mingles with the sharper sweetness of marigolds, their petals vivid orange and yellow. The garlands sway gently from wooden beams and metal hooks, brushing lightly against one another whenever a breeze moves through, releasing fresh waves of fragrance that drift down the corridor of the 5-foot way. You walk slowly past the stalls, watching the garland makers at work. Their fingers move with practiced precision, threading flower after flower onto thin twine, building length and pattern without ever needing to pause and think. Piles of loose petals rest in plastic tubs, jasmine buds, rose petals, sprigs of green leaves, waiting their turn to be woven into some shape meant for offerings, celebrations, daily rituals. The soft pull of thread, the tiny puncture as it passes through each bud, becomes a quiet rhythm beneath the murmur of voices and the distant hum of traffic. Somewhere nearby, a temple bell sounds not loud, not commanding, but clear and gentle, as if struck with a careful hand. The note rings out into the street, floats above the garland stalls, and lingers in the warm air before slowly dissolving. A minute later, another bell sounds, a different tone this time, slightly lower, joining the first in an echo that fades into the city's background noise. The bells repeat at irregular intervals, never forming a strict pattern, more like breaths than beats. The temple itself rests calm at the side of the street, its gopuram rising above the rooftops, covered in painted figures and carved details that stand still against the sky. Devotees move in and out, some carrying offerings, others empty-handed, bare feet whispering on the temple floor. From where you walk, you see only glimpses, a flash of color from a sari, a priest's white dhoti, a tray of lamps flickering briefly in the doorway. Yet the feeling of devotion seeps outward, quiet but steady. You leave the main road behind and drift toward Tekka Market, following a path that dips under the shade of an extended roof. The entrance opens into a cool, expansive hall filled with soft echoes, vendors calling out gently to regulars, the clink of metal bowls, the shuffle of feet against concrete. High overhead, fans turn in slow, deliberate circles, pushing the air down in broad, invisible waves, mixing the scents that swirl through the space. Tekka's wet market side hums with subdued energy. Stalls overflow with fruit and vegetables, piles of green chilies, purple eggplants, tomatoes glowing red and orange under fluorescent lights. The air is alive with the earthy aroma of fresh produce, the crisp smell of leafy greens, the sweetness of ripe bananas and mangoes arranged carefully in stacked pyramids. In another section, fish rest on beds of crushed ice, their scales catching the light in iridescent flashes, while butchers work quietly at their blocks, knives moving with confident ease. Further in, the cooked food area forms a gentle chorus of clattering dishes and simmering pots. Stalls offer biryani, curries, thosai, chapati, each space marked by its own combination of aromas. You pass a stall where metal pots line the counter, lids slightly askew, releasing curls of steam scented with cumin, cardamom, turmeric, and ghee. Nearby, a griddle sizzles as batter is spread into thin circles, becoming thosai, pale gold and crisp at the edges, soft in the center, folded and stacked, accompanied by small metal bowls of chutney and sambar. Despite the variety and fullness, Tekka does not feel chaotic. Movements are steady, purposeful. Customers queue in quiet lines. Stallholders move from pot to plate to cashier with a rhythm that has settled into their muscles. Voices do rise and fall, but never to a shout. The overall tone remains one of gentle transaction, of familiar routine. You weave slowly through the aisles, letting the patterns of sight and scent wash over you. The cool dampness of the fish section, the earthy spice of the Indian stalls, the faint tang of cut limes and newly washed coriander. The floor beneath you is mottled and slightly damp in places, the concrete worn smooth where countless footsteps have passed. Light filters in from high windows, softened by grime and time, turning into diffuse, golden shafts that fall diagonally across crates and counters. Eventually, you leave by another exit, emerging once again into the heat of late afternoon. The sun sits lower in the sky now, its rays warmer in color even as the air still clings with humidity. You cross a junction where buses idle, their engines rumbling gently, then make your way toward Bugis, letting the city carry you forward. The walk between districts becomes a slow fade from one atmosphere to another. Little India's dense, textured streets lined with spice shops, sari stores, goldsmiths, windows, gradually give way to Bugis's broader pavements and more modern facades. Overhead, the sky opens wider, less crowded by narrow shophouse roofs, more framed by mall edges and glass panels. Bugis feels like a bridge between worlds, a place where temples and markets coexist with shopping centers and newer complexes. You pass Bugis Street, its covered lane alive with soft chatter, racks of clothing, the glow of small neon signs. The energy here is livelier, lighter, but you remain on the periphery, letting the sounds brush against you without pulling you fully in. The air smells of inexpensive perfume, sugar, and frying snacks, a sweetness that feels more youthful, more urban. Continuing onward, you move toward Kampong Glam, where Haji Lane lies folded within a grid of streets that still carry traces of older times beneath the layers of newer expression. The Sultan Mosque's golden dome appears first, rising above the surrounding buildings like a sun of its own, its surface catching the late afternoon light and turning it into a warm, muted glow. The minaret stands slender beside it, pale against the sky, steady and watchful. Turning into the narrower lanes, the murals announce themselves before you fully arrive. Walls that might once have been plain are now canvases, painted in rich, saturated colors, filled with faces, patterns, abstract forms, and scenes drawn from near and far. Along Haji Lane, every surface seems to have a story layered onto it. Angular portraits in blues and reds, geometric shapes that stretch across entire facades, tropical leaves rendered in unexpected shades, script and symbols interwoven like threads. The lane itself is narrow, flanked by low shophouses that lean slightly inward, creating a canyon of color beneath the sky. Small indie shops open onto the street, vintage clothing, handmade jewelry, local designers' pieces displayed behind glass or on racks that spill just slightly onto the sidewalk. Cafes tuck themselves into corners, their doors open, their interiors dim and cool compared to the golden light outside. Golden hour has settled gently over everything. The sun stands low enough that its rays no longer come from above but from the sides, sliding along the walls, catching every protruding shutter, every balcony rail, every drawn line of paint. The murals glow more warmly in this light, their colors deepening, shadows giving them new depth. Faces painted on brick seem to hold more expression. Leaves and abstract patterns feel almost like they're breathing. You walk slowly down the lane, the ground beneath your feet a patchwork of old concrete and newer paving. The sounds here are different again. Low music drifting from a speaker within a boutique, the soft murmur of conversation from a cafe terrace, the clink of cutlery against plates, the occasional bicycle bell ringing gently as someone navigates the narrow passage. Light bounces between surfaces, reflected from windows and glossy paint, caught briefly in the smooth metal of door handles and chair legs. From time to time, the wind funnels down the lane in a brief, concentrated gust, ruffling hanging plants, fluttering the corners of posters, lifting the edge of someone's shirt. When it passes, the air settles back into its warm stillness. The buildings themselves here tell another layer of the city's story. Beneath the murals and storefronts, the shophouse bones remain. Arches, columns, upper floors with windows framed by simple shutters, roof lines capped with tiles. The old forms hold the new expressions, just as the city holds its different cultures side by side. You pause where the lane narrows further, creating an intimate pocket of space where a few small tables sit close together outside a cafe. People lean in toward each other here, talking softly, their voices mixing with faint laughter and the sounds of milk being steamed, ice clinking against glass. The air smells of coffee, sweet pastries, and something citrusy from a candle or diffuser inside. Looking upward, you see the sky framed by edges of painted walls and the undersides of overhanging roofs. The blue is still clear, but the tone has shifted toward evening, the brightness softening, grain by grain. The golden light sliding across the facades begins to lose its intensity, turning more rose, more amber, then gently retreating. Haji Lane and its neighboring streets hold a kind of youthful patience, not hurried but expectant. You sense that night will bring more people, more sound, more lights strung across the lane, but for now the hour is still in between. Shops remain open but not yet crowded. Murals stand fully visible, not yet overtaken by the density of evening bodies. You continue walking, letting the lane lead you back toward wider streets where traffic glides past in smooth, steady streams. The mosque dome catches the last direct beams of the sun before they slip behind the buildings, briefly flaring brighter before falling into a softer sheen. The calls of birds settling into trees replace the sharper cries of midday. Somewhere in the distance, another temple bell, or perhaps a church chime, marks the passing of time again, gentle and resonant. Leaving Kampong Glam, you find yourself drawn along streets that point toward a different kind of evening, toward the polished avenues of Orchard Road, where malls rise like illuminated canyons and trees string their branches with small, steady lights. The air cools only slightly, still warm but not as pressing, the day's heat beginning to ease its hold as the sky tilts toward dusk. You walk with the same unhurried pace that has carried you all day, letting the city shift around you. From jasmine and marigolds to spices and wet market tiles, from temple bells to street murals, from narrow lanes to broad, tree-lined boulevards. Ahead, Orchard's glow begins to gather, a soft constellation of signs and windows waiting to embrace the coming night. As evening begins its quiet descent, you drift in that direction, carried by the city's gentle current, ready to step into the next chapter of light and shadow, of reflection and subtle movement beneath Singapore's slowly darkening sky. Blue settles slowly over Orchard Road, not as a sudden change but as a gentle washing of color over glass, trees, and pavement. The heat of the day loosens its hold, and the air becomes easier to breathe, still warm, still humid, but with a new softness that feels almost like a quiet exhale from the city itself. You walk along the broad boulevard, your footsteps light on the immaculate pavement. The tiles underfoot are smooth and even, catching the last traces of daylight and the first sparkles of artificial glow from the storefronts. Tall tropical trees stand at regular intervals, their trunks straight and pale, their crowns spreading overhead in layered fronds. The leaves shift slowly in the faint breeze, forming overlapping silhouettes against the deepening sky. This is not the Orchard Road of midday crowds and hurried shoppers. In this blue hour, people move at a more languid pace. Small groups drift in unhurried conversation, bags hanging loosely from their hands, their faces lit briefly as they pass beneath pools of light. Couples walk side by side, their steps naturally synchronized, pausing now and then to look at a window display or to adjust a sleeve, a strap, a thought. The storefronts along the street glow in polished restraint. Large panes of glass reveal carefully arranged interiors, neatly folded stacks of clothing, delicate objects on plinths, subtle lighting sculpting shadows and highlights. The displays do not shout. They present themselves with quiet confidence, inviting passing glances rather than demanding attention. Reflections layer upon reflections. The mannequins, the real figures on the sidewalk, the trees and passing buses all fold into one another on the glossy glass surfaces. Above, the sky has settled into a rich, even blue, deep near the zenith and thinning toward the horizon where the last faint hints of pink and gold have melted away. The first stars are shy here, their light competing with the brighter, more immediate glow of the city. But the sky still holds its own presence, a gentle ceiling under which the evening stroll unfolds. As you move along the boulevard, the sounds of Orchard at this hour form a subdued tapestry. The low whoosh of cars along the main road, the distant, steady hum of air conditioning units hidden behind neat facades, the soft rustle of leaves. Occasional fragments of music drift out from a store entrance when its doors slide open, then fade again as the glass closes with a whisper. The air feels thick but not oppressive, carrying layers of scent. There is the faint trace of perfume as someone passes, the clean aroma of polished floors from an open mall entrance, the occasional drift of something sweet and buttery from a cafe, where last pastries of the day rest behind glass. Even the scent of rain seems present before a single drop has fallen, a subtle metallic freshness that hints at what is coming. You notice gradually that the breeze has changed. It becomes cooler, more insistent, pressing gently against your skin. The leaves of the roadside trees begin to stir a little more actively, their undersides flashing pale in the streetlights. Somewhere far off, a distant rumble echoes so faintly that you wonder, for a moment, if you imagined it. The first hint comes not as thunder, but as a brightness. Mall facades, bus shelters, and polished stone begin to reflect sharper points of light, as if the air itself has shifted density. You look up and see that the sky, which was a clear canvas of blue just minutes ago, now holds soft-edged clouds rolling in from one side, their shapes barely visible yet darkening the tone above. Then, without drama, the rain begins. It starts as the lightest tapping, barely audible, almost indistinguishable from the usual hum of the city. A few small, cool drops land on your forearms, on the back of your neck, surprising in their suddenness. You feel them more than you hear them at first, small, precise points of coolness against warm skin. Another drop, then two more, then a scattered pattern appears on the pavement, dark spots blooming slowly on the pale tiles. For a moment the rain remains tentative, as if testing the air. Umbrellas appear like flowers unfolding here, a dark canopy opening with a soft click. There, a translucent dome expanding, catching light in a delicate sheen. People respond without panic, only gentle adjustment. Some raise hoods, some tuck small bags closer to their chests, some simply continue walking, letting the first drops land where they will. Then the rain deepens, shifting from a scattered drizzle to a steady, fine curtain that moves diagonally through the light. The sound becomes more distinct, a continuous, gentle patter as countless droplets meet concrete, canopy, glass, and leaves. It is a soft percussion, layered but never harsh, wrapping itself around the muted city noises like a second, more intimate soundtrack. You step under the extended edge of a building's overhang, joining a small cluster of people who have chosen shelter not out of urgency, but out of quiet preference. The soffit above you catches the rain, redirecting it into thin, shimmering waterfalls at the edges, where the overhang ends and the open air resumes. Beyond that invisible line, the boulevard transforms. Puddles form in slight depressions, turning the walkway into a patchwork of reflected light. Neon signs, shopfront displays, traffic lights, and passing bus interiors all melt into the water, their colors stretching and blurring with each ripple. The steady fall of rain disturbs the puddles' surfaces in countless tiny rings. Every droplet draws a circle, every circle overlaps another. The street becomes a living painting, always changing, never repeating exactly the same image twice. Cars pass more slowly now, their tires hissing on the wet road, sending fine sprays outward that catch the headlights of vehicles behind them. Brake lights glow richer red in the mist, their reflections streaking along the shiny tarmac like brushed paint. Nearby, a bus pulls into a stop, its doors opening with a puff of compressed air. A brief moment of interior light revealing rows of seated passengers, some looking out, some absorbed in their own thoughts. Then the doors close, and the bus rolls away in a halo of spray. On the sidewalk, umbrella canopies drift like slow-moving petals. They pass in close proximity but rarely collide, each person adjusting their course by small degrees, aware of the shared space. Some umbrellas are solid colors, navy, black, forest green, absorbing the glow of the streetlights. Others are patterned with checks, flowers, or cityscapes, catching the light differently with each angle. A few are transparent, domes of clear plastic through which the falling raindrops are visible, collecting briefly before sliding off in delicate beads. Beneath the overhang, the air is cooler now, brushed by the downdraft of the rain. You can feel the temperature shift with each small gust that sends fine mist inward along the floor. The smell changes too. The scent of wet concrete rises, mixed with the fresh, mineral tang of rain and the earthy exhale of the trees that line the boulevard. Leaves glisten under the lights, water streaming along their veins before dropping from their tips in measured intervals. The rain does not roar, it murmurs. Its rhythm is steady, a soft, encompassing sound that makes the world feel slightly muffled, as if a thin curtain has been drawn around Orchard Road. Conversations nearby become more intimate, lowered out of instinct rather than necessity. The occasional laughter that escapes feels rounder, contained, not sharp. Even phones being answered and closed seem quieter, absorbed by the gentle static of rainfall. Behind you, within the building's interior, mall spaces continue with their own softened rituals. Escalators carry people up and down in smooth, silent lines. Music plays at a low volume from a shop, its notes only partially reaching you through the glass. Inside, everything looks even more polished against the contrast of the rain. Floors gleaming, lights warm, displays crisp and dry. A few people stand just inside the glass doors, watching the rain the way one might watch a slow-moving scene from a film. You stay at the edge, in between, protected from the direct fall yet close enough to feel stray droplets flick against your ankles when the wind shifts. The rain's continuity becomes hypnotic, each moment similar to the last yet never identical. Lights along the boulevard switch on fully now, their glow amplifying as daylight slips gently away. The blue of the sky thins, giving way to a deeper indigo veiled by a soft haze. After a while, the intensity of the rain begins to lessen. What was once a steady curtain loosens into individual strands, then into clusters of drops. The sound on the pavement quiets a few degrees. Umbrellas start to close, one by one, with the soft shake of water cast off their surfaces. Puddles still hold their mirrored worlds, but the disturbance on their surfaces becomes less frantic, more sporadic, allowing clearer reflections to form. You step out from under the building's shelter and back into the open, where the last raindrops kiss your shoulders and hair before the shower passes entirely. The air feels washed. Edges of sounds and scents slightly sharper yet calmer. Orchard Road glows now, not in the harsh brightness of noon but in the layered luminescence of night. Store signs, interior lights, street lamps, vehicle beams all sliding over the wet surfaces, blending in the reflections at your feet. The boulevard's trees, freshly bathed, appear darker and more vivid, their trunks slick and their leaves heavy with droplets that glitter when they catch the light. Some still release occasional drips, small delayed echoes of the rain, landing on the ground in solitary plinks. The city has not been interrupted by the shower. It has absorbed it, woven it into the texture of the evening. As you walk, the night around you hums with a composed, measured energy. People move in and out of malls, cafes, and side streets, some carrying the faint marks of the rain on their sleeves and shoes, others completely untouched. No one appears flustered. The rain was not an event to endure, but a transient chapter in the evening, a cool interlude before the night settles fully. The sky overhead deepens further into navy, with clouds now indistinct patches against the darkness. Here and there, small openings reveal a few stars, remote and faint. The brighter lights belong to the city now, the white gleam of building edges, the soft yellow of pedestrian lamps, the tints of signage reflected in the glass of bus stops and car windows. You continue along Orchard Road's gentle incline and descent, feeling the pavement's almost imperceptible shifts in level beneath your feet. With each step, the reflections at ground level tilt and remix. A row of lit windows becomes a streak of gold. A red traffic light smears into a ribbon of color. A passing bus leaves a long, liquid echo of blue and white trailing behind it in the shallow pools. Gradually, your path begins to angle away from the main artery, carrying you toward quieter streets that lead back in the direction of Marina Bay. The polished calm of Orchard lingers in your senses, the afterimage of lights on wet stone, the murmur of post-rain traffic, the feeling of having walked through a brief, gentle weather song. As you move along these connecting roads, the city opens up ahead once more. You can almost sense, beyond the next few turns and underpasses, the wide, reflective stillness of the bay returning. Towers mirrored on dark water, promenades glistening after the shower, the night sky and the city's glow folded together on the surface of the sea. With the rhythm of the rain still echoing softly in your ears, you drift toward Marina Bay, letting the city's blue hour deepen into full night, one quiet step at a time, toward the waiting reflections and the calm, luminous heart of Singapore after dark. Night gathers slowly over Marina Bay, not as a curtain dropping but as a deepening of tone, a gradual softening of edges. The last traces of twilight fade from the sky until only a dark indigo remains, a quiet backdrop against which the city begins to glow. You arrive at the waterfront to find the bay transformed into a vast, reflective mirror, holding the lights of Singapore as gently as if they were lanterns resting on still water. Marina Bay Sands rises before you like an illuminated sculpture suspended between earth and sky. Its three towers stand tall and pale, etched with grids of light from countless windows, some glowing steadily, others dark, forming a quiet mosaic of lives unfolding behind glass. Above them, the sky park stretches like a vessel of light, its underbelly lined with warm illumination that floats above the city as if it were a ship sailing slowly through the night. The bay itself is dark but never empty. Its surface is a shifting tapestry of color and motion. Streetlights, building facades, bridge rails, and passing boats paint the water with trembling threads of gold, white, and muted blue. Each ripple turns a straight line into a wavering shimmer. Each gentle wave folds one reflection into another. From where you stand, the skyline seems to exist twice, once upright and still, once inverted and trembling, both equally real. The air is warm and soft, the earlier rain having left a faint coolness near the ground. A light breeze moves across the water, carrying with it traces of salt, earth, and the distant, fleeting scent of flowers from the gardens beyond. The humidity presses against your skin, but more gently than in the day, as if the night itself has smoothed its hands before touching you. Around the bay, the towers stand in a circle, their silhouettes softened by a slight haze rising from the warm streets. Some of the higher floors vanish into a thin band of mist that blurs the boundary between building and sky. Light from within the offices and hotels diffuses through this layer, turning sharp angles into halos, giving the skyline a dreamlike softness, as if seen through slightly fogged glass. You walk along the promenade, your footsteps quiet on the wide, clean pavement. The handrail beside you gleams under the lights, cool metal catching small highlights that drift along its length as you move. Voices float past in many languages, snippets of conversation, laughter softened by distance, the occasional quiet exclamation at the sight of the bay. Yet nothing rises to a shout. The night encourages lower tones, slower rhythms. Across the water, Marina Bay Sands reflects in near-perfect vertical bands of brightness, broken only where the wake of a passing boat disturbs the surface. A slow river taxi crosses the bay, its interior lights warm and inviting, casting an elongated trail of gold behind it that stretches almost to the shore where you stand. The boat moves at an unhurried pace, gliding rather than cutting through the water, as if mindful not to disturb the fragile fabric of reflections woven across the bay. The Art Science Museum glows like a white lotus unfurling at the water's edge. Its petals are lit from below, their curved surfaces shining softly against the dark sky. The light is gentle, not glaring, tracing the architecture in a way that makes it feel both solid and weightless. Its reflection in the bay bends slightly with the ripples, as though the lotus is nodding slowly in agreement with the rhythm of the night. As you continue walking, the sounds of the city become a muted symphony behind you. The low hum of distant traffic, the soft whir of building ventilation systems, the occasional horn from a vessel farther out in the harbor, all blend into a background that feels almost like the city's breathing. Above it all, a few leaves rustle in the breeze from the landscape trees that line the promenade, adding a quiet, organic whisper to the urban chorus. The path leads you once more toward the Supertrees, now waiting in their nocturnal form. From a distance, their outlines are already visible against the sky, dark trunks rising into wide crowns ringed with subtle points of light. As you draw closer, their details emerge, the trunks glowing gently with climbing plants lit from beneath, their textures picked out in cool greens and purples, the canopies edged and dotted with small lights like stars caught in metallic branches. Entering the Supertree Grove at night feels like stepping into the heart of some imagined forest in the future, where nature and circuitry have long ago agreed to grow together. The ground underfoot is smooth, absorbing the echoes of footsteps and transforming them into a soft, almost inaudible presence. People move through the grove in drifting groups and pairs, their faces tipped upward, eyes tracing the glowing patterns above. The light show does not announce itself with abrupt fanfare. It begins with a subtle shift, colors deepening, intensifying as if the supertrees are drawing in breath. The points of light along the trunks brighten, then ripple upward in slow pulses, climbing toward the crowns. The canopies bloom in response, their edges and inner ribs lighting up in hues of violet, blue, and rose, changing in gentle waves that flow from one tree to the next. Music rises from hidden speakers, but it is soft, enveloping rather than dominating. Notes glide through the grove in long, sustained lines, strings perhaps, or something that sounds like them, joined by distant chimes, low piano tones, or pure voices with no words. The sound is carefully shaped to feel more like atmosphere than performance, a sonic mist that gives color to the air without insisting on being the center of attention. As the music breathes, so do the lights. Patterns of illumination drift across the supertrees in time with the invisible rhythm. One moment, the trunks glow in deep blues while the crowns shimmer in pale gold. The next, a gentle cascade of lights descends from the canopy to the ground, like soft, luminous rain falling in reverse. Sometimes all the trees share a single color, unified in quiet grandeur. Sometimes each glows differently, a constellation of individual auras. You stand beneath one of the towering structures and look up through its lit lattice. The branches form a web of lines that gather toward the center, framing a small circle of sky overhead. Through that opening, you glimpse a few faint stars, their presence nearly hidden by the city's glow but still persistent. The supertree's lights pulse around that circle, like a halo acknowledging something older and more distant than the city itself. In the spaces between the trunks, the pathways are bathed in a gentle, changing light. It pools on the ground in shaded purples and blues, then shifts to emerald and silver as the sequence continues. These colors cling briefly to the edges of benches, to the surfaces of leaves, to the outlines of people's silhouettes as they move slowly through the grove. Every few seconds, the scene recomposes itself, always familiar, always a little different. The planted surfaces of the supertrees are alive even in this artificial night. Ferns, bromeliads, orchids, and trailing vines catch the colored light in ways that make them look unreal, leaves glowing at the edges, petals taking on hues they do not hold in the day. The scent of vegetation mingles with the coolness of the evening air and the faint traces of rain still clinging to soil and bark. You can taste the moisture lightly on your tongue when you breathe in. All around, people have fallen into a kind of collective hush. Conversations are reduced to whispers, gestures slow and deliberate. Now and then, the soft click of a camera shutter punctuates the music, but even that sound seems muted, softened by the scale of the space. Children point upward with open faces. Older visitors sit quietly on low walls, letting the lights move over them without feeling any need to move in response. In this moment, the city feels like a luminous being. The supertrees are its glowing lungs, inhaling and exhaling light. The towers around the bay are its bones, illuminated and upright. The quiet movement of people through gardens and promenades are its bloodstream, carrying stories and breaths and fleeting thoughts along invisible paths. The music and the murmur of the streets become its voice, low, continuous, tender. As the light show enters its gentlest phase, the colors soften into pastels. The pulse is slow, as though the entire grove is winding down for the night. The final notes of the music linger in the air a little longer, then dissolve into the natural soundscape. Breeze and leaves, distant traffic, the subtle buzz of the city's countless electrical veins. When the lights return to their calmer, steady state, still beautiful, but no longer shifting in time, you begin to walk once more along the paths that curve between the supertrees and out toward the waterfront. Behind you, the grove remains a cluster of luminous trunks and crowns rising against the dark, like a remembered dream that continues even after you turn away. The route back toward Marina Bay leads you through stretches of quieter garden, where smaller lights guide the way, tucked discreetly among shrubs and along steps. The sky is fully dark now, the earlier haze becoming a soft veil over the horizon. You can hear the bay before you see it, the faint slap of water against the promenade edge, the distant hum of boat engines gliding calmly over the surface. Emerging at the water's edge, you find Marina Bay transformed again, no longer a twilight mirror but a full-night pool of ink scattered with flecks and streaks of light. The towers stand firm and glowing, their upper floors disappearing into a faint halo where the air thickens with moisture. The reflections below are richer now, more saturated. Gold, white, sapphire, occasional crimson, all extending downward in long, trembling columns. You walk along the promenade in the direction of the original viewpoint where your night journey began. With each step, you watch the reflections shift and recombine under your gaze, like a slow choreography of color and shadow. The air carries the same notes as earlier: salt, stone, a trace of greenery, but mixed now with the slightly cooler breath of late evening. The city seems both vast and intimate at this hour. Vast in its reach, the sweep of lights around the bay, the silhouettes of ships waiting quietly out at sea, the distant clusters of housing blocks glowing softly on the horizon. Intimate in its details, the quiet conversation at a bench nearby, the way someone leans against the railing and absent-mindedly traces patterns on the metal, the gentle nod exchanged between two strangers who happen to pause at the same break in the view. You slow your pace until walking feels like drifting, until drifting feels like standing still, held in place by the night and the water and the glow. The sounds of the city no longer seem separate from the air you breathe. They merge into a single, continuous presence, light but unbroken. Somewhere behind you, the Supertrees continue to glow in their own orbit. Ahead, the bay widens toward the harbor, where darkness and lights meet at the edge of sight. The skyline watches over it all, not imposing but quietly persistent, a cluster of luminous forms resting at the seam between earth and sky. In this softened darkness, Singapore feels like a living lantern, contained yet open, measured yet breathing, precise yet capable of enormous gentleness. You stand at the water's edge with that awareness unfolding quietly inside you, the city's reflections rippling across the bay, as the night deepens and the long, slow farewell begins to take shape in your thoughts, ready to follow you gently when you finally turn away. The southern edge of the island feels different from the bright, mirrored heart of the bay. Here, the city loosens its collar a little. Towers thin out, roads become quieter, and the dark shape of the sea begins to press gently against the horizon, a long, steady presence that has been here all along, just beyond the lights. You follow a path that traces the southern coastline, the pavement a soft, muted gray beneath your feet. The night has settled fully now, and the sky is a deep, velvety blue-black, with only a few faint stars visible between the distant glow of ships and the soft halo of the city behind you. The air moves differently here, carrying with it the long, low breath of the sea. The breeze arrives in slow, cool waves. It brushes your face, your arms, your neck with a salt-tinged softness, taking with it the last of the day's heat. Each gust is a little different, sometimes stronger, sometimes barely there. But all of them carry that same quieting effect, as if the ocean itself is exhaling onto the shore, smoothing the edges of thoughts and sounds. On one side, the island's fringe stretches in shadows and faintly lit silhouettes, the outlines of palms and coastal trees, the low arc of a railing following the curve of the shore, the occasional glow of a lamp standing alone beside the path. On the other side, the water extends into the darkness, measured only by scattered points of light. Ships anchored offshore, deck lamps burning like stars that have wandered down to rest on the sea. You walk at an easy pace, footsteps muffled on the smooth path. Here, the sounds of the city are softened to a hush. Far-off traffic is just a faint hum like a memory of movement. The mechanical rhythms of the port, cranes, engines, distant horns, arrive in softened fragments, filtered through the night air and the buffer of distance. Between those sounds lies the gentler, older rhythm of water touching land. Waves here are small, tamed by breakwaters and man-made edges, but they still speak. They press against the shoreline in a steady pattern, rising, brushing the stones or concrete, then retreating with a quiet sigh. The rhythm is subtle, but once you tune into it, it becomes a background heartbeat, a continuous, comforting pulse under the surface of everything else. Across the strait, Sentosa rests in scattered points of light and broad expanses of shadow. In the distance, outlines of gently sloping hills are barely visible, dotted with pockets of illumination that mark sleepy resorts, low buildings, and the soft glow of winding roads. The island's edges are trimmed in reflections, clusters of lights floating on the black water, elongating into tremors whenever a breeze stirs the surface. You come to a bench facing the water, set slightly back from the path beneath the partial shelter of a tree. Its slats are cool to the touch, faintly damp from the lingering breath of the earlier rain. You sit and let your body rest into the quiet geometry of wood and metal, the backrest holding you as you lean into the view. From here, the coastline curves away in both directions, forming a cradle of light and darkness. Behind you, Singapore's inner districts glow steadily, their lights forming a gentle arc that follows the land's contour. Ahead and outward, ships rest on the open water, each one carrying its own small constellation of bulbs and lamps, white, yellow, occasional red, threaded along decks and masts. The breeze moves through the leaves overhead, creating a soft, rustling canopy above your thoughts. Occasionally, a single leaf detaches and flutters downward, landing with barely a sound on the path or the grass nearby. The air smells faintly of salt and vegetation, with a whisper of sun-warmed earth now cooled by night. You sit in this space between land and sea, between the bright center of the city and the darker, quieter reaches of the horizon, and the day begins to unfold behind your eyes. You remember the precision of the MRT, the calm order of platforms and carriages, the steam from hawker stalls rising in fragrant clouds, the colors of Peranakan tiles and Chinatown streets, the jasmine garlands and temple bells, the murals of Haji Lane catching the golden hour, the polished calm of orchard in the rain, the supertrees glowing like gentle beacons in the night. All of it fits together here, along this quiet coastline, as if the city has been gently collecting its impressions and laying them at your feet. Singapore's character begins to take on a shape that is less about what is seen and more about what is felt. A careful balance between structure and softness, between planning and warmth, between the measured pulse of efficiency and the quiet kindness of small, human gestures. You think of the way paths are laid so that walking feels natural and unhurried, the way trains arrive on time without needing to announce their precision, the way hawker tables are cleared and wiped with quick, practiced hands that still pause for a nod or a short exchange, the way old districts are preserved in their painted shutters and intricate tiles, even as glass and steel rise around them. Order here is never cold. It seems to exist in the service of calm, of ease, of giving space for people to move gently through their days. The city's warmth is not loud. It's contained in the Kopitiam uncle who remembers a regular's drink, in the garland maker's careful threading of jasmine buds, in the shared tables at hawker centers, in the unspoken understanding of how to share space, on trains, sidewalks, in long corridors of shophouses, without friction. It is there in the quiet nods exchanged, the way people step slightly aside to let others pass, the way so many small, daily rituals keep everything moving smoothly without demanding attention. Out on the water, a ship's horn sounds once, low and distant, echoing gently across the strait. Its note is slow and deep, fading into the night like a breath released. The surface of the sea catches reflections from both shores, the island where you sit in Sentosa across the way, merging them in a continuous band of trembling light. Above it all, the sky arches, dark but not heavy, holding a few faint stars that manage to shine through the city's glow. You sit on the bench until time loses its edges. Minutes stretch, soften, become indistinct. Your breathing unconsciously falls into rhythm with the waves, steady movement and the slow, periodic push of the breeze. The day's impressions begin to feel lighter, their details settling gently like silt at the bottom of a calm pool, leaving the surface smooth and reflective. At some point, you become aware that your body has grown heavier with relaxation, the limbs a little looser, the shoulders lower, the breath deeper. The city, too, feels as though it has exhaled fully now. The noise has thinned. Even the lights, though still bright, seem less insistent, more like a soft veil wrapped kindly around the night. When you finally rise from the bench, the wood leaves a faint, cool imprint on the back of your legs. You take one last look at the water, at the scattered ships resting quietly, at the gentle fold of light along the shoreline. The path ahead is simple and clear, edged in low lamps that guide the way without glare. You begin to walk again, unhurried, each step easy, as if the day itself is carrying you now. The sea remains at your side for a little while longer, its presence constant but understated. Behind you, in the arc of the island you have slowly traced, Singapore continues to glow, measured, composed, but undeniably warm. As the night deepens, the city sounds thin even more, until they feel less like noise and more like a distant lullaby. Soft engines, muted voices, a far-off horn, the endless whisper of water along the shore. The path becomes less something you follow and more something that gently leads you inward, toward the quiet places of your own mind, where the day can rest. You carry with you the Supertree's gentle light, the bay's reflections, the murmur of hawker centers, the cool air of the cloud forest, the smell of jasmine and pandan and rain on stone. They blur together into a single, comforting impression, an afterglow of a city that holds both precision and tenderness in the same steady hands. Your eyes grow heavier with each blink, your thoughts slowing, stretching out like the coastline at night. The darkness around you is no longer empty. It is filled with the soft presence of everything you have seen and felt, held now in a calm, protective quiet. Tonight, Singapore walked with you, calm, warm, and quietly luminous. Rest well.